Let me know when we're in.
I'll say we're in.
We're in?
Yeah, we're in.
Welcome back to another episode of Talking Pictures.
Talking Pictures. I want to get just in front of it. I didn't look it up before I thought of the name, if it was taken. Apparently it is taken by the Turner Classic Movies channel podcast.
But do we give a fuck?
So I'd no in terms of using the name.
If it's not copyright, then anyone can use it. It's 2 words.
I don't think you can copyright a title like this.
Yeah, it's 2 words.
Yeah.
2 words put together.
Yeah. No, that podcast, that's Ben Mankiewicz, who's related to the whole Mankiewicz family.
Oh, Mank.
Yeah. But he's he's a political commentator sometimes, and he's a big movie guy. He was the host of the TCM channel for a bit. Good interviewer, cool personality. Haven't listened to that podcast though.
That's not what we do.
And he does interviews and stuff.
They're too professional for us.
We just do it. We're totally different leagues.
Totally different leagues.
If you ever recommend this to someone and you say, yeah, it's Talking Pictures, and they say, oh, that TCM one, you say, no.
How many people do you think actually know it's a TCM podcast?
I mean, probably a decent amount. That's a popular,
you
successful
didn't know.
channel. I didn't. No.
I didn't know.
There's a chance because I followed some Ben Mankiewicz stuff when I was younger, so I could have found out about it, but I didn't go that way. So
either way, welcome back to Talking Pictures. It's episode number
5, 6,
something like that.
6. Your picks are even picks. My picks are odd picks.
I don't even know how you worked that out.
Because I did the first one and then you did the second one.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
This week we have, as you may have guessed from the picture, where if you're watching this on YouTube or
the title of the thing,
listening to this, which it's going to be on Spotify, it's going to be on other platforms, like, subscribe, all that jazz.
I'm not going to say that, but yes.
I'll say it. I've got no pride.
You'll take that hit.
I've got no pride. But this week, it's Casablanca.
Casablanca.
This is my pick, as you mentioned before.
Yes.
You've seen it before.
Yes, a few times.
A few times.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think how many times I've seen it.
Mm-hmm. I think we might have watched it a couple years ago.
Did we?
Possibly.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. That does ring a bell. But I've seen it a couple. Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay. I love this film.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite films of all time. I hate when people ask me, what's your favorite film of all time? Because it's really hard.
Impossible.
There's different reasons for different films.
Yeah.
But for this one in particular, it's the love story. Mm-hmm. And in the climate that we're in, I apologize. It's not by design.
We keep talking about Nazis. It's not...
I don't know why Nazis are in the zeitgeist.
They're just everywhere.
They're just everywhere now.
They keep popping up.
And for whatever reason, most of our film picks have involved Nazis.
They're a great source of conflict, because it's an immediate, clear bad guy. I don't think I've ever seen a movie where Nazis are the good guys.
Well, maybe.
I mean,
You might need to watch some Nazi propaganda films.
We're not going to be covering fucking Triumph of the Will on this.
Oh, you know some Nazi propaganda films?
Yeah. Triumph of the Will.
We need to watch
by
them.
Leni Riefenstahl. I would watch it sometime. I'm not going to give it dignity by covering it here.
No, we probably won't cover it, but just to watch it.
Sure. Film history.
But this is one of my favorite films of all time. It's the love story between Rick and Ilsa. And I think Rick is... you talk about, the quintessential man.
Sure.
I feel like I'm watching a man.
He's bogey. Humphrey Bogart is one of the classic epitomes of masculinity on film.
And it's not like he's running around chasing bad guys or anything like that.
No.
He's just a man who's been through a lot of shit. And we'll get deep into the themes that occur throughout the film.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that, I want to hear your thoughts.
Oh, okay.
What do you think about the film?
I like it a lot. It's just it's not a complicated story. It's really simple fundamentally. And to be honest, not a lot happens in the movie. A lot of it is just conversations between characters that I really like. So much of it is the flavor of each character and who they are and how they bounce off of each other. Because the real plot beats, it's real fundamentals. Someone needs something, someone has something, and it all gets resolved pretty neatly in the end. It's not a long movie. Not a lot of movies back then were long because film reel costs money.
And to be honest, I don't mind an hour and 45.
Oh no, in and out. If it's good, it's good.
If you use your time well, you don't need 3 hours.
No.
You don't need 3 hours. Don't get me wrong, I like a good 3-hour film. Schindler's List, It's a journey.
Magnolia is packed to the brim with stuff.
Yeah. If you use the time wisely and you work out the pace, 3 hours can fly by.
Yeah.
And an hour and 45, like you said, it's not like a lot happens, but you do go through a journey with the characters.
Mm-hmm.
From the moment you meet Rick till the end, you feel like he's changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's made a choice.
He has made a choice to really go with his morals, and that's kind of his conflict throughout. Is he has this projected front of sort of being detached, being neutral. At one point, Renault calls him the most neutral man in the city. But he's constantly compelled to do the right thing.
Yes.
We get a little bit of backstory on him that he's fought in wars for a while. He was like running arms in Africa somewhere. He fought, I can't remember where he fought, but he keeps fighting on the side of the underdog, is something else it says. He keeps finding himself on the side of the underdog because he just can't help but try to do the right thing and stand up to bullies and bad people. And so throughout it, he's really conflicted of how much of his new life here that he wants to give up, how much of this nice little corner of the world he's carved out for himself is he willing to put on the line, and in the end, he gives it all away for the right reasons.
So for anyone who hasn't seen Casablanca, first of all, we're recommending it. Please watch it, and then come back, or maybe listen to this, and then watch it,
Sure.
if you don't mind spoilers. But the film is set in Casablanca during World War II.
Yep. Came out in 1942.
1942, which is literally like the pinnacle.
The peak right halfway through the war.
And refugees are stranded in Casablanca waiting for visas, but it's sort of like a... what would you call it? It's neutral. You've got Germans, you've got Frenchmen, Americans, obviously, Czechoslovakians. You've got so many different nationalities, but it's not like the Nazis can just pick up people and just throw them in concentration camps. They sort of need a reason to do it.
Yeah, Casablanca, I don't know the exact geopolitical details of it back then, but it was, I believe it was previously a French-occupied territory, Morocco, which is why the French police are in charge, Captain Renault, played by Claude Rains. But by then, of course, the Nazis had taken over France, so they sort of have provisional control over France's territories, but yeah, they're not all out controlling the streets, rounding anyone up. There's kind of like in The Third Man, which takes place after the war, there's this national bureaucracy that everyone has to deal with.
Yeah.
The order of operations.
Which makes it hard. Well, makes it hard, but it's also great for someone like Rick because he owns this cafe, it's like a cafe, it's like a nightclub, and it's popular with loads of locals, refugees, anyone can go there, the corrupts can go there, but it's Switzerland.
Yeah.
Nothing bad happens. You don't fight in the nightclub. You don't, do dodgy shit in the nightclub. It's just there to have a good time. And I don't know what it is about black people playing pianos, but we got another blackie on the piano.
Yeah.
Sam. Good old boy Sam.
Good old Sam.
And, there's a song before we get to it.
Yeah.
Because you sort of figure out one of the main crux of the story is that you find out that 2 German officers were killed. And they were carrying these transit papers, which are papers that you need to travel.
Signed by whatever local official they need the signature of, but blank for the names of the actual travelers.
So anyone can write that.
It's a free ticket out of the city.
It's a free ticket. And this guy, Ugarte, has them.
Oh, Peter Lorre.
And he's so swiny. He's like a little rat.
Peter Lorre is one of my favorite actors. He is, I think he was Hungarian, but then he moved to Hollywood. Yeah, Hungarian and American. Moved to Hollywood and started playing these slimes, these creeps. He's just got this. There's another movie that he's referred to as Bug-Eyed, and he's just the best. And as soon as you see him on screen, as soon as a word comes out of his mouth, you know exactly who this character is. Oh, Rick, please, Rick, no.
And he's asking Rick to hold on to these papers just in time because but Rick is skeptical. He doesn't want to get involved. He knows exactly what they are. He knows exactly what Ugarte did. Mm-hmm. He's not an idiot.
He doesn't want the heat.
But he accepts them.
Yeah.
Which made me wonder if maybe at the beginning when he accepts them, he doesn't necessarily think about using them himself. Mm-mm. But maybe to sell them if the time comes.
Yeah.
When, it's almost, I look at Rick as someone who holds his cards close to the chest. Mm-hmm. He waits to see how the dice fall, and then he goes, okay, now I'm going to play that card. And it was because Ugarte gets arrested, then gets killed.
I forgot how little Peter Lorre was actually in this movie. For some reason, he makes such an impression in my mind. I thought he was in it for longer than he is, but he's really only like one scene. No, he gets arrested, and then
yeah. But that scene that he has with Rick is so good.
Yeah,
because I think you have the narration, and then you set up the club, and then you go into Ugarte and Rick's scene.
Yep.
And it's the flow of the film, because then you start to, because you know that these transit papers, someone has them, and immediately it's not sad, but you kind of go, oh, those are the transit papers.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't explicitly say, oh, I've got the transit papers.
Yeah.
I've just killed somebody for them. But it's this, I like the way the story moved, because everything, I mean, it's obvious. If it's a good film, then everything will lead to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. But then Victor Laszlo arrives with Ilsa. What's the actress's name?
Ingrid Bergman.
One of the most famous actresses of all time, and I'm like, what's her name? She's beautiful, by the way.
Oh yeah, she's stunning.
But
her accent is so cute, and God, yeah, in love with her.
She was Swedish?
Yes.
That's one of the things I've noticed about these films, is that you've got a lot of European actors in them.
Yeah.
Which you don't see in Hollywood films as much. Well, I say that, but you've got a lot of British actors.
Sure. Muscling in, playing American roles.
But you don't have Europeans playing Europeans.
No, not a lot.
Which makes sense because the story's set in Europe, so you can't... Well, Casablanca's not in Europe, but the conflict really involves Europe. So obviously, you need Europeans to be involved in the story.
Yeah. I think a lot more movies back then took place around Europe, or at least internationally. So many movies these days are just in their own little local area. But then also, when the war started, there was this, and as leading up to the war, there was this huge influx of actors and directors and filmmakers from Europe fleeing to America because they didn't want to get caught up in the Nazi machine. And that's where so many great classic Hollywood actors and directors come from, is that sort of exodus to Hollywood.
I wonder if it'll happen again.
Well, I mean, depending on how things go, we might see Europe become a new hub of movie making, or, you know.
But Victor and Ilsa arrive.
Yes.
And you find out that they're on the run, but they're looking for letters of transit.
Yeah.
Which, luckily, Rick has.
Very convenient.
Very convenient. And their motivation is to try and get out of Casablanca.
Yeah.
The only problem is the Nazis are trying to get after Victor.
Laszlo, he is basically a resistance leader.
A very famous one.
Yeah. He had been captured and spent time in a concentration camp previously to the events of this movie.
How did he do that? How was he in I guess in my ignorant brain, it was like, once you're in. You don't get out until the war ends.
There were, I think, some escape attempts made in history, and I mean, there's the movie The Great Escape, though that's not, that's, I guess that was more military prisoners. That was like British and American soldiers that were captured, as opposed to rounding up people that the regime didn't like. But yeah, some escapes were made, and that's what Laszlo's done here.
But then you find out that Ilsa knows Sam. And if Ilsa knows Sam, then Ilsa knows Rick.
Yeah. As soon as Sam sees Ilsa walking by, he's just like, oh, fuck no. Something is about to go terribly wrong.
And before Rick and Ilsa even meet, Sam is begging her, please leave. Just leave him alone.
Yeah.
You're bad news to him. And you don't know why. You're like, what did this beautiful woman do to Rick? What did she do to him? And then they meet. This is after Ilsa asks Sam to play As Time Goes By.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful song. Do you have the lyrics by any chance?
I can pull them up real fast.
Because one of the things that happened throughout the film is that it gets played the first time when Ilsa asks for it. Then there are moments throughout the film when it's just Rick and Ilsa, and you hear the chords just playing underneath the scene.
In the score, yeah.
But it's sort of, there's the certain parts when it's got this melancholic undertone at certain parts.
Yeah, the score reharmonizes it. I mean, the initial song itself it's yearning, and it got this nostalgic feel to it. But then, yeah, when it's used throughout the score reharmonizes it and puts it in different keys to give it all these different feelings of sadness and then tension in the moments where it feels like it's closing in around them. The score. What do you think about movie music from back around this time? What do you think of this score?
I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why. What was the this isn't from the 1940s, but what was the German film that we saw that's set in the won the Oscars? Dun, dun, dun.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
You see, when something like that happens, right, and you've got, because it's so iconic, like that, dun, 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 and you just feel the terror that's about to come.
Yeah.
I sort of feel from the films that we've watched, especially The Third Man, Casablanca, the score is almost understated. It sort of has this effect on you without you even realizing it. Like, the first time I watched this, I did not realize that As Time Goes By plays underneath every single time it's Rick and Elsa on the screen together. But now, I don't know, second, third time watching it, it has this effect on you. And it's that thing, that yearning, that feeling of yearning, of this love that used to be there, and it might still be there, but you can't quite reach it.
The time has passed.
The time has passed. And this, how I feel about it, I feel like it affects you in different ways. It's much more subtle. What do you think?
I really, really like how As Time Goes By is used throughout this score. It clocked to me because when it goes into that tune, as opposed to the rest of the score, so much movie music from around the time this movie came out and before and a little bit after, so much of it was mostly incidental. Like, it's not a theme that gets built up and then used again. Because for the rest of the movie, there's not really any identifiable themes like As Time Goes By. It's all down to the moment. And it comes from how scores used to be used for silent movies, where they would have a selection of pieces, and a lot of it would just be classical music by Bach and different composers and things. But then sometimes composers and players would start to come up with their own incidental music, and as the silent movie would be playing, you'd literally have someone on a piano in the theater playing in sync to the movie. And it would vary. Different theaters, like, not every theater would always have the same score. Sometimes they would just come up with their own new thing for it.
That's quite interesting.
So, yeah, and that's where incidental score comes from, that term.
But that would make sense in terms of, I feel like you have to go through that to get to a point where you've got, like, the Hans Zimmers of the world.
So that's where it ended up. I don't know a whole lot about movie score history, but I do know that back when this movie came out, it was very scene to scene, moment to moment. The music is just to heighten the emotions there. And then as the medium evolved, this music started to be used as a storytelling component itself more and more, where you'll have something like in Star Wars, you have the Imperial March, you have Luke's theme, you have all these different leitmotifs is what they're called, where it's the same tune repeating, and then it can be reharmonized and used in different ways. But everyone recognizes da 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 da. That, and that's used multiple times to build up This Is the Empire. And then it keeps going on from that, where you get to something like what Hans Zimmer does, and it's all very intentional. Different characters have different themes, different moments have different themes, and you can use that to tell a story in just the music alone. And that evolved through musical theater and through movie scores, and as classical music evolved through the 20th century. And I don't think that was the method for making scores around when this movie came out, because As Time Goes By sticks out so clearly as the one thing you can hold on to in the mix of swelling. It's a bit.
But you see, the thing with like what I said, like, it enhances the storytelling.
Yeah.
And I feel like as movies carried on, it became more intentional of, like, actually, what about for this character, like you said, what about for this character, we have a specific theme for them, and then whenever that character's on, then you play it at certain points and blah 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 blah. But Yeah, we're going back to the 40s. It is sort of like if it was a tense scene, like the chords would like
It's all minor chords, and they're
Yeah.
swelling, and the violins and everything.
Yeah.
And it's
melodramatic.
so melodramatic. And so I brought up this whole music thing because in some movies from back this time, it's so goddamn annoying. The music is so intrusive. And some of it is
I
real
like it.
bad.
I like it.
This one, it works. It's not too melodramatic when it needs to be, and then as time goes by, hammers it home. But eventually, we'll get to some of them where the score is just too much. Just like give it a rest, let the moments breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think the more we watch movies from this era, the more it'll stick out to me.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't thought about it that much. I was always like, oh yeah, it's a little bit melodramatic, but I understand it because of what's happening in the scene. It makes sense.
Sure.
Like from a storytelling perspective, it's like, oh, it's tense, so yeah, you're gonna put the chords high and like, yeah, okay, yeah,
And
makes sense.
The music is just emotional. It's like literally just that emotion in that moment. It doesn't build and it doesn't get reused.
No,
But it works when it's done well. It works there. It's just an interesting thing about how movies evolved.
it's an interesting thing you brought up. Interesting. I never thought about that. How it's changed.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, where were we?
Ilse and Rick.
Elsa and Rick. So they finally meet, and you realize that Rick does not want Elsa to be there.
No. I've got the quote here that he says a bit later on. Of all the gin joints in all the towns in the world, she walks into mine.
That scene
Yeah.
when he's drinking alone. The thing about black and white films, I don't know about you, but I always think, is the light on? In the room.
Yeah.
Is the light on? I can't tell.
Yeah.
It's there was a moment during the film when he does switch the light off.
Yeah.
And you notice the difference. But other than that, I really would not be able to tell if the light is on or not. Mm-hmm. But for that scene, it's something about black and white films, the way they use shadow, and there was his face was half of it was in the dark and half of it was lit.
Yeah.
And the camera would sort of pan in and out at certain points, which I found really interesting. Like when he was sort of contemplating the past between him and Elsa. And it would sort of pan in to see him thinking. And then it would pan out when Sam was by the piano and when Sam walks in and tries to get him to stop drinking. And I think in that moment you realize how much, what's the expression? How much she took from him, like the sort of like the pain, the sorrow he feels from the one that got away.
Yeah.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's the one that got away.
It's a deep feeling.
And when that's, I'm gonna speak to all the people out there who have the one that got away. We all have one. Maybe some people listening to this are too young. I don't know how old you are, but you will get to the point where you realize the one that got away, and that pain, especially when they come back into your life.
Yeah.
When you've moved on, when you've somehow managed to carry on, and they come back, it brings up all sorts of emotions. Because then it's like, I love you, but the pain you gave me is still there, and you can't. Oh, God. this is about to get personal. I don't want it to get personal. I'm going to keep it general.
It's gold. Come on. Get it on the air.
No, I'm not going to start crying on this podcast about my wedding. No, we're not going to get in. But
Okay.
no, but it is true. It is true. I watching that scene, I can connect with Rick in that moment because I myself can go, I know what he's feeling.
Yeah. And then there's especially the double twist of, and now she's married. Is what he thinks is that, oh God, she left me and then got married to some other dope.
Some other guy. And it's one of those things where you start questioning, like, what did I do wrong? Was I not enough?
Yeah.
Was it all a lie? Was the time we spent a lie? And that's, I sort of feel like that's where the pain comes. And then you get into the flashback and you see them together in Paris. Why is it always Paris? Why is it always Paris?
It's got a reputation.
The city of love.
Lots of historical branding put to work well.
It's good propaganda. I
It's really
like
good
it.
propaganda, yeah. Emily in Paris continues the tradition.
Oh my God. But even I'm like, oh God,
It's not that nice in real life.
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay. I think the reason I always say I want to go to Paris
Yeah.
isn't necessarily because I think it's all shiny and rose
Yeah.
and like Emily in Paris makes it out to be. The reason I want to go to Paris is because of Casablanca. It's because of that flashback scene in Paris.
Interesting.
A romance in Paris. And I don't want to be broke when I do it, but I do want to be in Paris where you can go to the restaurant, you can walk through the park
Yeah.
in Paris. You can go to the museum, to Louvre, and just look at art. And go back to the hotel and just... It's almost like the world doesn't exist. I think that's the thing about love, is that it sort of insulates you from the rest of the world. And you kind of get it in this flashback.
Yeah, this flashback it's mostly a montage. It's just these little snippets of love, these tiny little moments. All the bones of it, where they're going on a drive and they're having some champagne and they're laughing together, and not a lot of it is really substantive because it's not about the real nature of what love is in that complex relationship. It's just pure love. Everyone knows this feeling.
Yeah.
Give you the flashcards to make this feeling come up in your mind. Really great use of montage there.
And it's around just before the Germans approach.
Yeah.
The first few montages. And you hear there's a first announcement, which is by a French person who says that the Germans are approaching on Tuesday, something like that.
I don't remember the day.
Something like Tuesday, whatever day.
Yeah.
And then they make a plan to leave. Then there's another announcement by the Germans saying that outside Paris, they're approaching and giving them instructions of what to do when they approach. And this is when Rick and Ilsa make this plan to leave together. Rick is running away from something. He wants Ilsa. And the most interesting, this film, the depiction of love, it's absolutely excellent because they don't ask each other questions.
Yeah.
They don't know about each other's past. They make it a rule. We don't ask each other questions. But they just enjoy each other's time.
Yeah.
Fuck, man.
It's interesting. We don't get it in the flashback itself, but the rest of the movie tells us that they are two broken people, and finding the way that they help make each other whole again by the end of the movie is quite beautiful.
But you never find out how they met.
No. Ilsa was in the city. She thought Laszlo was killed in the camps, and so she didn't really know what to do. And she was in Paris, and something happened, and they found each other.
And she's younger, obviously.
Ingrid Bergman was 26 when this movie came out.
26.
26.
How old was Humphrey?
Oh.
Humphrey looks like
It's
an
an
older
age,
man.
It's an age gap for sure.
Yeah.
Something I did not know. Ingrid Bergman, Isabella Rossellini's mom.
Of course.
Yeah, I had no idea. It makes perfect sense.
Of course.
But
of course, she's Hollywood royalty. She's probably going to win the Oscar then.
yeah, probably. Is she up for lead or supporting right now?
I have no idea.
If it's lead, I think it might be Demi.
I have no idea. I have not been keeping up with the Oscars.
Not this time around. I want to get around to seeing the movies, but they haven't pulled me in like some previous years. Bogey was born in 1899, so he was 43 when this movie came out.
Yeah, this romance, it looks great on fucking film. I don't know what it's like in real life because it's painful at the end.
Yeah.
Because when they decide to leave, Rick is waiting with Sam, and Sam shows up with a letter from Ilsa, basically saying that she can't come with them.
It says, Richard, I cannot go with you or ever see you again. You must not ask why. Just believe that I love you. Go, my darling, and God bless you, Ilsa. Leaves him cold. He's got no idea what's going on. Out of the blue. Just believe that I love you.
And in that moment, because he gets on the train with Sam, and he just scrunches up the paper and just throws it away. I love that because he was like, without any words, it's almost like, fuck, what did I expect? Why? And it's almost like he's beating himself up. Of like, why did I allow myself to believe?
Yeah.
Because he's a man who clearly has a certain point of view about life. He's so cynical about life and probably doesn't allow himself to experience love in the way that he did with Ilsa because he's been let down in his past life. He's been betrayed. This is a betrayal.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's one of those things, right? Of like, how many betrayals can you take before you start going, fuck everybody? How many do you think you've got?
Me?
Yeah.
There's certain people that I don't think I will ever say fuck everyone about. But, I mean, in general, I'm just going to look out for myself. It's a tough world. This is what you've asked me a few times, how much soul can I afford to lose? And this is what I say, like, I've lost quite a bit of soul already. I know where my priorities lie.
You know what? I'm with you. I'm out. I'm out. This might be the origins of a villain.
Okay. Okay.
Not a villain. The origins of a Rick. Like, origins of a Rick.
Well, that's the thing about Rick, and that's what I'm saying about his conflict in the movie. His conflict isn't even really with Ilsa.
No.
Because he just needs to learn the full story, and he understands what happens. He might not feel good about it, but he understands. His conflict is, does he do the right thing? Does he continue to do the right thing? And right towards the climax of the movie, we're worried for a second that he's given in and he's not doing the right thing anymore. But the hints are always there that he's going to do the right thing. He's been, his backstory. There's this couple in his club who, it's this young couple, and the girl comes up to him and says that they're trying to get out of the city, and Captain Renault, the local police chief, played like Claude Rains, and I'm going to talk about him more later.
Oh, yeah.
He's such a great character.
Yeah, so funny.
But the girl tells Rick that they've come to an understanding with Renault, because they don't have the 10,000 pounds or whatever it takes to get these papers sorted out that Renault could work out for them. They've come to an understanding with him where basically she sleeps with him and he'll get them out of the city.
Which never is explicitly said.
It's never explicitly said. This movie came out during the Hays Code era, so there were lots of very strict rules about what you could do on screen, and this movie gets around them so well.
It's implied that, what does she say? She says, would you, if you really love someone, if you really loved her, would you forgive her if she did something despicable, something unforgivable?
Mm-hmm. But for the both of them.
And then, she's talking about sucking Renault's dick.
Or something like that, yeah.
No, so along those lines.
Yeah.
Along those lines.
It's when she comes in, it's a great little... There's so many little one-liners and digs, and quite a few of them are at Captain Renault. She comes in and says, I came with Captain Renault, and Bogey says, I should have known. And she says, my husband is with me too. And Bogey says, he is? Well, Captain Renault is getting broad-minded.
He has those great one-liners throughout.
Yeah.
What's his name? Claude Rains?
Yes.
Also grad.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's been a few grads in the films.
Yeah.
That we've looked at.
It'll be interesting to see once we start seeing the post Albert Finney years. Because there was that sort of shift in the school's attitude. And so Claude Rains is very classical.
Yeah.
As opposed to...
But he's sort of the... Let's touch upon him.
Sure.
Because he's the comic relief.
Mm-hmm.
He's the bad guy, but not actually.
No.
You don't really know where his loyalties lie. He's looking out for himself.
Yeah.
He's corrupt, but then when you get to the end of the film, it's almost like underneath it all,
yeah. He's got a heart of gold. He's a scoundrel, but he's got a good heart. He's got his priorities straight, and he's just kind of there to have fun. He, in his first scene with Rick, he says he's trying to figure out Rick's backstory, why Rick can't return to America, because he can't return to America for some reason. And Renault says, did you abscond with the church funds? Did you run off with a senator's wife? I like to think that you killed the man. It's the romantic in me. God, he's got some great lines. A little bit later, Rick's trying to work out something with him, work out the escape of this young couple, and Renault says, Rick, please, I'm only a poor corrupt official.
and when the first young couple manages to get the money because Rick helps him gamble,
he's rigged his fucking roulette table. He's running a dirty casino.
Renault jumps on a new one. Mm-hmm. Which you clearly realize that this is his game.
Yeah.
He does this on a regular.
It's sleazy. He's using his position of power to convince vulnerable young people.
This was... Would you say they needed Me Too?
Yeah, no, they have a case against him.
Do they? Because it's different times,
It's different times, and it's,
there's a war going
desperate
on.
situations.
How much do you want those papers?
It's a personal choice. I think what Renault is doing is morally and ethically bad.
But how much do you want those papers?
Sure.
How much do you want to leave?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Because that's the important thing this movie sets up. Everyone wants to leave Casablanca. Or not everyone, but that's like the dream. At the beginning of the movie, there's a few shots of the plane taking off and flying out over the city, which establishes that as like that's the dream. That is what everyone wants. Everyone looks at it. At one point, it literally flies towards the camera over their heads, and so it's the dream flying right over their heads. And yeah, people wanted a lot. Doesn't make what Renault is doing good or okay, but it's a personal priority, sure.
No, but he is pragmatic.
Yeah.
And it's not like I always felt throughout the film as if him and Rick are friends. They have an understanding. They'll probably sell each other off if given the chance.
You think?
If given the chance, if it benefited Renault, he would betray Rick, and he would probably be like, "It's just business."
Maybe. The last line of the movie is, "I think this is the start of a beautiful friendship." I like to think that they have something. Maybe they could double cross each other, but they would always end up working together again.
Yeah, they would always. It's that friendship, right?
You can't hold a grudge.
They won't. They wouldn't hold a grudge. It'd be like he'd double cross him, and afterwards he'd be like, "Yeah, but what'd you expect me to do?"
Yeah,
and they'll just carry on. And it's just like tit for tat, but they're still friends because they probably have the best understanding of where they are in life, because with the big theme throughout the film is whether to stand for something or to let it slide. And there's a moment when the Nazi officer asks Renault, "Which side are you on?"
And he says, I have it written down here, he says, "I have no conviction, if that's what you mean. I blow with the wind."
And that's sort of like the thing, because Laszlo has a side.
Yes.
Ilsa has a side. Rick is tittering on which side he picks. Renault doesn't have a side.
No.
Although I do feel as if he's French.
He doesn't like the Nazis.
He doesn't like the Nazis.
No one
but
likes
he's
Nazis.
not gonna die. He's not willing to die for it.
No. Though he does, at the end of the movie, he does have to escape because they have committed a crime. They've killed some Nazis.
Yeah, but they cover it up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. What is
the officers come around and see what's happened, and he's like, "Major Strasser has been killed. Round up the usual suspects." Just sends them off.
Which I mean, it's funny in the film, but when it's happening to the blacks, it's not so funny. But
Yeah.
but it is it tickles your bones. It tickles your bones. But going back to picking a side, there's a great scene when they're in Rick's, and the Germans are playing with a band, and I don't know what they're playing. Is it a Nazi anthem?
It's some German song.
And then Laszlo sees this.
Yeah.
And Laszlo goes to the other band, and they stop playing whatever they stop playing.
It's the French national anthem.
The French national anthem. And now you've got two opposite sides in the club singing along. But there's this great shot of Ilsa looking at Laszlo in that moment. And in that moment, you see why she loves him.
Yeah.
Because he stands for something. It's his conviction that she loves so much, which is probably why. Because there's a scene when Ilsa is trying to convince Rick to give them the papers, and she points the gun at him. She even says, "I love you, just give them to Victor." She'll do anything, but it goes back to last week, and I know you cut it out, but don't trust these digging But that's a great
Yes.
example.
Yes.
That's a great example.
Well,
For the right reasons.
for the right reasons. I do love it. She's just like got a gun out of nowhere. It's like, oh shit, she's got a gun. Words fail. Time for firearms. There's a really interesting character that doesn't get a whole lot to do, but it's some girl that Rick's had a thing with.
Yeah, you see her at the beginning.
Yeah, and she's trying to talk to Rick and be like, "You're blowing me off. What's up?" And he sends her home because he's a player. But she comes back in later, linking arms with a Nazi officer. She's trying to do all right for herself and trying to survive in this bad situation everyone's in. But people shame her for it. People look down on her. And this was a big thing. Any, like, women who hooked up with Nazi officers to try to get perks and try to get special treatment after the war ended, they were not treated well. There was a lot of shame. And, like, public shaming as far as forcefully shaving their heads and feathering them and shit like that. But the reason I brought her up in part was because when they all start singing the French national anthem, she joins in too, and she's like crying. It's just a shot of her face, and she's tears streaming down her face. So even though that she's done this thing to protect herself, to try to get a little bit ahead, she still feels this so strongly. And that moment where the unity of that moment where everyone starts joining in singing for France, it's really powerful, and it brings on someone that people were previously shaming, but she feels in that moment that she needs to. It's great.
There's a. Yes, we haven't sort of deliberately picked films that are set during this period and the topic, but there is something about when you live in a time when there is so much to lose and you have to pick a side, your allegiances, where they lie and where you... Because I sort of feel like humans were built to survive.
Yeah.
And people see survival in different ways. So if there's a big world war and there's that side and that side, now maybe because let's say you're French, you're gonna fight with the French. But I'm pretty sure there would have been, like for example, this woman would have said, "Listen, I don't want to die, so I'm gonna join with the Nazis."
Once you're in the shit, yeah.
When shit hits the fan, is he still a fan? That's what Kendrick said.
Yeah.
When shit hits the fan, is he still a fan? Do you think you'd still be a fan?
Of what? France? No, never.
No. Let's okay. Hypothetically speaking, right?
Yeah.
Let's bump everything going on right now to like a 12.
Okay.
America teams up with Russia. Boom, baby.
Mm-hmm.
You're American.
Yeah.
The Brits and most of Europe, maybe not all of Europe.
Yeah.
Germany is a little bit iffy, but maybe France, Denmark, Norway, some others, they go, we're standing strong against them. Which side are you picking?
Not Russia.
But the Americans are with the Russians.
Yeah, but I mean, my country's government has been taken over by far-right nationalists. That's a thing that has already happened. I don't blindly support the government. If America goes to war with... America's been going to war with people that Americans haven't won to fight for a century.
So okay, would you fight against the Americans? If the draft got brought back, and they're like, yeah, you're the right age max, and you got that letter saying you've been called up
to fight against Europe on behalf of Russia and fascist America, no. I'm not going to fight that.
So would you join the Brits to fight against America? I mean, or would you just be like, you guys deal with it?
I don't want to go to war under almost any circumstances. If the war has come to me, then I guess, I'll fight. but I wouldn't fight on behalf of fascism. So yeah, I guess if I had to join someone, I would join the Europeans. I think that if it got to that point, this is getting way away from movies, but I think that if it got to that point, America itself would splinter. I don't think all the states would be okay. So I said this the other day, I think, if I were, the only way I really see myself fighting in a war is in an American Civil War. That could convince me to actually fight to preserve what I believe my country is.
The reason I bring that scenario up, because it's Rick hatches this plan to sort of with Reno, and he tells Reno he's gonna trap Victor, and then when he traps him, he's gonna use the letters of transit to escape with Ilsa. Then when Victor arrives, he does the switcheroo,
The double cross.
and Reno's the one who's actually double-crossed, and he lets Victor and Ilsa leave. That's when he makes his decision.
Mm-hmm.
That's when he picks a side. Because in that moment, he's picked a side. The first time in the film that he's actually picked a... Yes, there's mentions that he fought previously for the Spanish loyalists and something in Africa. I'm forgetting what it was. But in the film, that's the first time he picks a side.
Yeah.
And it's in that moment where I felt as if... I mean, it's great. He's the bigger man, you know. He's letting the woman he loves go off with. Because at this point, you know, throughout the film, it's actually quite interesting because Ilsa tries to explain to Victor who Rick is.
Yeah.
And then Victor says, doesn't matter. What happened whilst I was gone happened. You don't need to tell me. You don't need to explain yourself. Which I really respect. It's hard to hate Victor.
Oh no, he's great.
He's actually like... I said Rick is the quintessential man, but Victor's... He's something to aspire to be.
Yes. Rick is a Batman, Victor's a Superman.
Okay, I don't really like Superman, but yeah, I get what you mean.
Something you want to aspire... Wait till the new movie comes out. You're going to see what I mean.
I get what you mean, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because once Ilsa explains what happened, explains that she thought that Victor was dead, and but when she found out, she had to go to him because he needed her. In that moment, Rick understands and makes the decision. And it's actually quite, like I said, it's being man enough, being man enough to admit, okay, I'm gonna put my shit aside and look at the bigger picture. And I think that's sort of like the thing. I even think Victor mentions this in the film where he's like, it's about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Which I look at myself and I'm like, would I be able to do that? Would I be able to put my shit aside and just look at the bigger picture of this is way more important than any one person? And just keep going. Somehow, some way. But the airport scene in the third act, which you talk about, it's the score.
Yeah.
That's where it really goes into effect.
Yeah. The full melodrama of
The
it.
full melodrama of it all.
Going all over the place. But then it goes into, as time goes by, this very sort of fast-paced, tense version. Until Nazis. I fucking love music from back in the day. Anyway, yeah.
No, but the airport scene, that moment that Rick, the final moment that Rick has with Ilsa, And I understand why it's one of the most iconic lines in film history. Here's to looking at you, kid. Before I ever watched this film, I thought, oh, it's said once, but it says it multiple times throughout the film. But in this moment, it's the goodbye
Yeah.
of. And what does he say? He says, we'll always have Paris.
We'll always have Paris. We got it back last night. And I love that line. We'll always have Paris is a famous quote from this movie, but I don't often hear the second half of that line, which is we got it back last night, which is, that encapsulates the feeling of what that Paris flashback is, of this incredible romantic love bubble in your life that gets popped, and the whole thing now feels tainted for Rick because he's been duped. He feels like he's been duped. But then we got it back last night is so beautiful of whatever their situation is now, he can look back on their time without the dirt, without the poison in it. He can look back on it and know what it was, and he can carry that love into the future.
Major Strauss, the Nazi German, arrives, tries to stop them. Rick shoots him, and as we explained, it's the end of the film.
Yeah.
I don't even it's the end of the film.
Kill the Nazis.
Kill the Nazis. The Nazis dead. They fly off. But and you might have other thoughts you want to get into, but
sure.
This film is one of the greatest love stories of all time. And it holds such a... And I think as I get older, it already holds a special place in my heart. But as I get older, I think that place is going to stretch and stretch. Because every single time I revisit it, it's almost like... It's that weird thing, right? Like when we were watching The Matrix the other night. And who's that character from Bad Boys? The actor from Bad Boys?
Italian Judas.
Italian Judas.
Cypher.
Okay, Italian Judas. Like watching Italian Judas and going, oh, I understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
Still don't like him, but I understand where he's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Casablanca. As you get older, you go at Rick and you're like, yeah, I understand why you're like this way. And it's that thing great thing about films is that you visit them at a certain point in your life, and then years later, you're a different person.
Yeah.
You've gone through different things, and your understanding of life, your philosophy of life will shift and morph into a different lane, and you come back to that film, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I understand this differently. And it goes back to that thing of like, you can put 5 people in a room and they'll watch a film, but they'll watch a different film. Every single person.
Yeah. It's
not the same film they're watching, because they're bringing to it their own sort of point of view, and it's like Civil War. You know, when Alex Garland was like, yeah, I didn't want to put any political factions in this because people put their own thing. And even when they don't put those political factions, you watch it and you go, oh, I think that's such and such. I think that's this political. I think that president's this. Yeah. I think you naturally do that. Mm-hmm. So every single person and I go into Casablanca, it's that thing of, yeah, love, man. Like, I'm a little bit older than you. I mean, your birthday soon, but bro, I'd say this getting older thing, man. Like,
I'm not looking forward to it.
The pain, but that's the thing. It's the pain that you have to experience throughout life. And Rick has been through some pain.
It's interesting. So you identify with Rick?
Yes. I identify with Rick. I identify with Victor.
Yeah.
I understand both. But I probably like Renault.
See, this is the thing. This is what I was saying earlier about I have my priorities. I've lost a lot of soul. I know what to keep. I identify most with Renault in this movie. Aside from the pressuring women into sleeping with me, I like Renault. I vibe with him. I vibe with him the most. His attitude is just he's there. He's gonna make the best situation that he can. He still doesn't like the Nazis. And I wouldn't like the Nazis. I think I've got a bit more of a backbone than Renault. I'm pretty cowardly, but I've got a bit more backbone than Renault. But I identify with him the most of just sort of being there for the ride.
You probably identify with him more than I do.
Yeah, I'm not strong enough to be Victor Laszlo, and I haven't had enough pain yet to be a bogey.
Yeah, the pain. Wait for the pain. Give it a few more years. The pain will get you there.
No,
it'll get you there, and then you'll be like, yeah, Rick, yeah, I understand. But no, I completely get it with Renault, because I think there's something where having a good time in a bad situation, which I actually aspire to do.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes not in the best situations where, like, I was saying a few weeks ago, I realized I have a weird relationship with death.
Sure.
So I make jokes.
Yeah.
That's how I create levity in the situation, because the situation's down here, I gotta bring it up a little bit. So you can't understand from Renault's point of view of like, yeah, I'm gonna enjoy myself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't let this. Yeah, but the getting women to sleep with you, I understand, man. Like, I understand. Get yours. How many women? Listen, okay. First of all, how many women do you think falling for Renault?
Not a lot.
Exactly. So he's not Rick.
No.
So if he's got to get his, let him get his.
I mean, he might get.
He's still helping.
He might get.
Is this
more,
a Harvey Weinstein?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. This is what I'm saying.
Weinstein.
He's a bad dude. The pressuring women, like, it's really not okay what he's doing.
No, it's not. I didn't say it's okay.
No. But like, it's. I understand. I don't agree or empathize with it, but like, yes, I see why he does it.
Yeah, you can see why he does it.
But I think that's an attitude thing. If you're the type of person who is willing to use your position of power to convince women to sleep with you,
oh no, you're not a good person.
No, you're not a good person, and that might make it harder for you to find women who actually want to sleep with you. If you change your attitude to be someone who's not going to pressure people, that might make you more attractive.
But even with that, I think he's the type of person that he's so corruptible. Mm-hmm. I don't think women necessarily, they can smell it off him. They can smell the corruption off him. You talk about Gotcha being slimy. Renault's slimy as well.
Yeah.
You know, I think there is something about this. People who are slimy that, you know, it's they find despicable ways to get theirs because you can smell it off them. You can smell a slime ball from a mile away. So, you know, if you're not smart enough to get away, then they'll catch you. It's like Toad. Put his tongue out and just gotcha. Yeah.
We're talking the X-Men Toad.
Yeah. From the first one.
Yeah.
Put his tongue out and gotcha.
Yeah.
Any remaining thoughts?
Oh yeah. The movie making. I mentioned the montage and the flashback earlier. But this movie, the filmmaking is so economical. It's almost all shot on a studio, which lends itself, almost.
Oh.
Yeah. Rick's Club, the Blue Parrot, it's all on a studio.
Yeah, there's not many different sort of locations.
No. I think the only on location shooting they did was a bit at the airport. But yeah, it's so economically made, all on the studio. That lends itself to the lighting, where most of the lighting is just a few spots aimed on people. It's not like super elaborate. The storytelling economy of it is so tight in that we open up, we get this Indiana Jones map travel, establishing the world facts. We get to Casablanca, we see there's fascists there, we see what the city's like, we see the plane, and then we get to Rick's Club, and we get another sort of, it's not a montage, but little use of just flavors, little tableaus of various characters in the club, all these different people with all their different sorts of goals, making deals, making connections. This is the lifeblood of the city, this club. And we get it with just a few shots, a few snippets of conversation here and there.
Can I just mention real quick?
Yeah.
There's a character, a pickpocketer.
Yeah.
What's he called?
I'm not sure if he gets a name, but he shows up.
He shows up at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where he's talking to a gentleman, and the gentleman finds out that he's been pickpocketed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's the second time, because he pickpockets somebody. Mm-hmm. And then, who's the guy who works at Rick's? The general. Carl. Carl bumps into him afterwards.
Yeah.
And as soon as he bumps into him, he checks his pockets because he knows. I love that part. Oh my god. I love that. Yeah, carry on, sorry.
Talking about the sort of minor characters of this movie. Carl is one of my favorites. He's got some great lines. At one point he says to Rick, when Rick keeps drinking, "You are becoming your own best customer." This actor, I can't remember his name. Where is he? The actor, he shows up in a bunch of stuff back then. He shows up in the movie, one of my personal favorites for Christmas time, Christmas in Connecticut, S.Z. Sakal, that's his name. He's great. He's like full-on comedic relief in almost everything he ever did. And he's just the person who they were like, oh, we need some laughs in this movie. Bring him in. For all I know, he might have improv some stuff, like the checking his pockets and everything. So he's just a powerhouse of the day. Love it when he pops up. All the other characters, they have pickpockets in there. Peter Lorre is in there. Peter. Okay, we're going to talk more about Peter Lorre on another episode of this. But he's great. There's this song by the artist Al Stewart called Year of the Cat, and it's partially inspired by this movie, the sort of feeling of the song, the tone of it. And the opening lyrics are, "On a morning from a Bogart movie, in a country where they turn back time, you go strolling through the crowd like Peter Lorre contemplating a crime." I love that lyric so much. I love the song so much. But it encapsulates him like Peter Lorre contemplating a crime. You know, that exact feel, the slink throughout it. We haven't even talked about Sidney Greenstreet. The owner of the Blue Parrot, another establishment around the city. Signor Ferrari. Oh, yes, him. Who's another underworld fixer, connector. He's a big part of this movie in my mind. He doesn't really do a whole lot.
He doesn't do much.
No, he shows up for a couple conversations. He almost works out a way to get only Ilsa or Victor out of the city. And Victor's adamant that he wants to get Ilsa out, and she says, "No, I'm not leaving without you."
He's also a slimeball. And I've just realized that all the residents in Casablanca are slimeballs.
Yes.
I've just realized that.
Yeah.
It just realized. And interesting fact, him and Bogey did 5 films together.
Yeah, they're both in Maltese Falcon too, with Peter Lorre. God, we should talk about that one soon. I don't know the other ones, but Sydney Greenstreet also in Christmas in Connecticut with Carl. Briefly talking about Sydney Greenstreet, I love him. He's always great in the movies he shows up in. He's always playing Sydney Greenstreet. The character, who he is so great. He speaks like this, and he's got this very sort of old rich voice. There's this song from the Archies, which is a Hanna-Barbera cartoon from the 60s. It was one of their slop factory.
Is that linked to Riverdale?
Yeah, Riverdale. Archie comics. And they wrote a song for it called Sugar, Sugar, Honey, Honey, which is this really vapid, shallow 60s pop song. It's sugar, sugar, honey, honey, you are my candy girl, and you got me wanting you. It's not a good song. It's really basic. It was one of the songs that they put in the episode so that they could just loop animation for like 3 or 4 minutes and not have to make any new frames. Some genius, I can't remember his name, but some genius made a cover of that song in character as Sydney Greenstreet. And it makes it terrifying because now you've got Sydney Greenstreet impression coming on being like, sugar, sugar, honey, honey.
Is that on YouTube?
You are my candy girl and you've got me wanting you. Yes, it's on YouTube. It's hilarious. I needed to bring that up because Sydney Greenstreet's so cool.
It's funny you mention him because I think he probably has like 3 scenes in the film, and the last time you see him is when Rick is selling off his club.
Yep.
And they make a deal that Sam gets 25% of the profits.
Yes.
I thought that was a nice touch.
I want to talk about Sam. It's a nice touch. Rick says that it's like a little back and forth between them because Rick's like, and I have a standing relationship that Sam gets 20% of the profits, and Sydney says to him, I happen to know that it's only 15, but I know that he's worth 25, so he'll get that. Sam really loves Rick.
Yeah. Ride or die.
Truly. Just cares about Rick. He's not the most three-dimensional character.
No, but let's be honest, how many black people were at that time?
Not a whole lot.
He is, the actors, Dooley Wilson, was actually a singer and musician.
He was a drummer, apparently. He didn't know how to play piano, so they had to fake it.
Oh, did they?
He's just miming playing piano throughout the whole movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because his performance of the song as time goes by is absolutely beautiful, and I recommend people to listen to the song. You know, it's a beautiful song. You can listen to it whenever. It's one of those old classic sort of. Would you call it jazz?
Yeah, it's a jazz standard.
Like a jazz standard. So you pour some whiskey and just chill and just listen to it. But yeah, he seems to have been with Rick for a while.
Yeah.
Because he's with him in Paris. Obviously, they're together in Casablanca. We don't know how long they've been together, but it seems to be a while, and it seems like Sam has Rick's back.
Yeah.
And Rick has his back as well.
Yeah.
Because you don't really, besides the Nazis and stuff like that, there's not racism in that other sense, you know what I mean?
Some movies made around this time are overtly racist. This movie is in just the casual racist attitude of the time.
Yeah.
Where it's loose shots.
Yeah.
Collateral damage. Wasn't the intent, but
I just it's one of those things where you think of Quincy Jones. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. I don't know why Quincy Jones came into my mind, but it's the thing with Bugsy Malone, where in the nightclub, the gangsters' nightclub, there's a black guy playing the piano.
Yeah.
And I see. This is why I thought it was in black and white because it's shit like this.
Yeah.
But no, Sam is yeah, he's underrated. He's underrated. Always there for the white man.
Yeah.
I'm not wrong.
No, I mean, that's his function in the movie. He's a great character. And I wish maybe we'll get a spin-off someday with Sam's story.
I would love a sequel
Yeah.
of Rick and Renault and Sam's there as well.
Sam runs off to find them wherever
Yeah.
they've ended up.
Yeah, somewhere, I don't know. Was there another the Cold War? Did they survive till the Cold War?
They could survive to Korea. Korean War was in the early 50s. Yeah, Bogey was still alive then.
Yeah.
Or yeah, some, like, East Germany, or where they're stuck behind the wall or something like that. Yeah,
They need to stop making sequels to things like The Godfather and stuff like that. And just give us a sequel to stuff like The Third Man in Casablanca.
Yeah.
I just want to see where this... Because you can do anything.
Yeah.
You can... If you've just got like, oh, where did these characters go next? You could have something. But yes, carry on.
What else am I? I've touched on most of the side characters. I've got a few more Renault lines because they're just so good. He towards the end he asks Rick, "Where were you hiding the travel papers? I had this place searched and I couldn't find them anywhere." And Rick says they were in Sam's piano. And Renault just says, "Serves me right for not being a musician, or serves me right for not being musical." And then, as soon as Rick's pulling a gun on him and the tables have turned, he's like, "Under the circumstances, I will sit down, thank you." And my absolute favorite line of him in the whole thing is it's right after the French national anthem gets sung and the Nazis want to crack down, and so Renault has to get everyone out of the club, and he finds a way to do it. And basically he turns on Rick for doing illegal gambling, even though he was participating in the gambling not moments ago. And so he comes out and says, "I am shocked to find that gambling is going on in here." A person comes up behind him and says, "You're winning, sir." He says, "Oh, thank you very much."
Telling you, he is hilarious.
It's so good.
There's he's one of those actors. And who is the other actor? I'm forgetting his name now. In The Third Man, the big guy.
Orson Welles, Joseph Cotton.
No.
The big guy.
Yeah, the Third Man who liked the books. He was the only one who read the books.
Yeah, Payne. The cop's goon.
Yes.
Yeah, Payne.
Him. I'm trying to. Bernard Lee. Oh, Bernard Lee. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bernard Lee. Okay. Bernard Lee and Claude Rains. There is something. You know how you said earlier about like that era of actors. There's something quite similar in the way they approach the work.
Yeah.
Because the comedic timing is so sharp,
casual.
Yeah, it's actually so masterful that I'm one. You don't see it this day and age.
No, not really.
You don't see something like sometimes you see comedy where it's like, oh, they're trying to be funny. Oh, sometimes it's subtle and it's funny, but this one is like subtle but also sharp. It's so fascinating how the delivery happens, but it's
yeah.
I need a time machine to go back and just sit down with them and be like, how did you do that performance? Just tell me what was the process, the delivery, because you don't see it at all. You don't see it in many actors at all.
No, it's a very masterful, understated use of comedy.
Oh God! You know the closest thing to it is probably I'm forgetting the actor in Shrinking.
Oh, the husband.
The husband.
Yeah.
He is the closest thing to it. where it's just like, it's shot, but it's funny. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my god, that's...
It's
I forgot the episode we watched, and I had to play it back because it was he did it so masterfully, and it was just watching. And I was like, oh my god, this is like extraordinary.
I think part of the comedic brilliance of it is that it's as if the character is saying it only for themselves. They're not expecting anyone. They're not saying it, putting a joke out there. They're just, it's their own little way to cope with the situation they're in.
Yeah, maybe that's the key.
It's great.
Do you think you could do that in today's age? Maybe the writing doesn't allow it.
It depends. It's that kind of comedy that's only there on the sidelines where it's not the focus. It's a very British sensibility.
Yeah.
A lot of American comedy writing is, look at this joke, and a lot of British comedy writing is, isn't this situation shitty? Let me say something clever about it.
Yeah. And I have noticed it in the difference between the comedians, because the comedians, let's say like Ricky Gervais. Ricky Gervais he clearly has a structure to the joke. And I know in some of his specials he sort of breaks down the joke to where the punchline leads. But there is this sort of precision.
Yeah.
That's what I've noticed with British comedians. There's a precision. Not saying that American comedians don't have the precision, but it's almost like...
it's a different way of doing it.
It's a different way of doing it.
Have you ever seen like any Dylan Moran stuff?
No.
He's an Irish comedian. He was in the show Black Books. His stand-up is fantastic, and he is a fucking master of his craft. So the words that he chooses and the way he says things and just puts these little ideas out there is amazing.
Oh, no, I recognize him.
Yeah. His stuff is incredible, and a lot of it is this little sniping stuff where it's almost as if the joke is for the comedian themselves only. James Acaster's stuff too. We should watch his repertoire on Netflix at some point, because that is also...
Have you ever seen Lee Evans?
No.
You've never seen Lee Evans?
I mean, I've seen him on panel shows and stuff, but I've never seen any of his own material.
His own material.
Yeah.
He is. I think he took a break for a while. I think he's back now. I'm not too sure, but there was a period when he was probably the biggest comedian in the UK.
Interesting.
And it was probably before he took the break, because I watched like The Medallion. You ever seen The Medallion?
No.
It's with Jackie Chan, Lee Evans, and Claire Forlani. You'd recognize her, but she's in Meet Joe Black.
Okay.
But yeah, we're going off on a tangent now.
Going off on a tangent. Last thoughts? This movie is propaganda.
Oh yeah.
This is a very explicit propaganda piece. It literally ends, the score towards the ending, on the last shots, is the French national anthem. All movies are propaganda, some more explicitly than others. This
Top
movie...
Gun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful propaganda. But then there's the trailer for that Indian movie that we saw the other day.
Oh yeah.
That was
Indian
like,
Top Gun.
Where I was like, oh, now I realize how this looks to everyone else in the world. Makes me feel a little...
It's like
different
Twisters.
about it. Oh no, Twisters is just gold. Twisters is great.
That's how we see Americans looking at that and be like, this is crazy, this is insane. But yeah, Casablanca, propaganda.
Propaganda, but it came out at the height of the war, and I imagine that it really was a morale booster when it came out. The scene where they start singing the French national anthem, it feels like almost the opposite to the scene in Cabaret.
Yeah.
Where the Nazis start singing.
And, going back to the thing about propaganda, because if you've got, like, your main character being Bogey, and he's cynical, if I think about how many people would have been cynical, like, it's just a natural human thing. If the world is shit and you're cynical about it, if you're trying to get people to fight, to join the fight, you give them a character like this who then makes the decision, because there's something bigger than yourself. Get them to realize it. They can see themselves through Bogey.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it's so good propaganda.
Yeah.
So good propaganda. When it's done good, it's good.
When it hits, and this one really hits. Yeah, I think that's about all I wanted to talk about. Great movie.
Great movie. Well,
Watch this movie. Listen to As Time Goes By. Listen to Year of the Cat by Al Stewart. Listen to Sugar Sugar Honey Honey by way of Sydney Greenstreet.
don't take it too seriously. In that, I mean, the world. It's
Sure.
all good. It's all good. In a world of Ricks, be a Renault. Don't no. Let me take that back. Let me
Yeah.
take that back. Let me
Yeah.
take that back. Let me take. In a world of Ricks, have fun without
Yeah.
using your power for evil,
Yeah,
like Renault.
like Renault does. Find the fun in this. That's it. That's the attitude. Is if you're in the shit and you can't change anything,
Yeah.
then might as well not wallow in it.
Yeah.
Of course, Renault could change things, and he actively used things for bad. So, yeah. Don't be like Renault. Don't be like Renault.
And don't be cynical.
Don't be
Pick a
cynical.
side.
Yeah. Know what
Hopefully
you need
the
to fight
good side. But just, life's too short. I love, man. I love the love. I love love, man. I love love.
for. I've got so much love to give.
I got all this love to give, man. I got love so deep inside of me. I don't know what we're going into, but anyway,
no.
that's it for this week.
That's it for this week. I do know what I'm gonna have us do next week. I had a moment of realization where I can use this to make you watch a movie that you don't want to watch.
Oh, I'm gonna do that to you.
I know. Well, it'll become a war at some point. Not yet. But I had that realization.
Oh,
this
I
week.
think I don't know if I'm waiting for you to fire the first bullet, but I know I'm gonna fire the bullet.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what I'm gonna make you to watch.
I know my opening move. I know what the first attack will be.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you sit there, and I'll watch it with you.
That's gonna be fun.
This is taking too long. Anyway, love, respect, stay joyful. Get off the internet, which is weird because you're probably on the internet listening to this.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe. Listen to the other episodes. We got Cabaret. We've got Magnolia. We've got In the Heat of the Night. We got The Third Man. We've got Bugsy Malone. And we just gave you Casablanca.
Yeah. We gave it to you.
We gave it to you.
We were responsible
made it
for this.
We made it for you. Okay? Have some respect.
All right. Peace.
Peace.